how to get beyond the burn and sizzle, and how to put your voices together to actually make a difference on some of these things. So to start, I think we need to look backwards a little bit. And as Jim told you, our issues really haven't changed this year from what they were last year. Our priorities about the Farm Bill and about the RFS. And I was a little naive. I started off last year, gave testimony in the Senate Ag Committee in March, and watched the Farm Bill get passed out of the Senate Ag Committee with the great leadership of your Senator Stabenow. I can't say enough for her. I have a better relationship with your senator than I do with my own. And then watched it kind of slow down a little bit, but we got it through the House Ag Committee, and then all of a sudden we hit a brick wall. And it's been totally frustrating. So to put that in context about how we left off with September 30th with no Farm Bill, let's just look at what the election was. And as you all know, the election outcome was very clear, and we are back to business in 2013 with the 113th Congress, probably I would say even more polarized and dysfunctional than we were last year. And so we have a big challenge ahead of us as we think about ourselves as farmers and what we think about our issues are and how we're going to accomplish what we want to do. So if you look at this map, it were the blue counties in the United States that took the election. And I think it's very clear for us to look at what the perspective is of where we fit in there. So only 16% of voters live in rural areas. And most of those voters are not engaged in production agriculture. So if we look at the trends for what the voting population and the demographics of America are, we need to do that to put ourselves in context of where we are and our voice. So the young voters turned out again, just like they did 4 years ago in the last election. The demographics in America are changing. Women now make up 52% of the electorate. And the white vote keeps shrinking. So in 1992, of voters, 87% were white. In 2012, it was 71%. And we have the emerging voice of the Hispanic vote. Also, the median age of non-Hispanic whites, our voice, our age is 42.3 years of age, and with Hispanics it's 27. So how does that determine where our voice is and how we can be more effective? Hispanic growth now has more from birth than from immigration. 50,000 Hispanic citizens become eligible every month to vote. Nebraska and Kansas went from around 5% in 2000 census to over 10% in 2010 census. And the biggest percentage increase was in South Dakota. So our world around us is changing. And as you live in your rural communities, sometimes we can be pretty insulated from that fact. And at Policy and Priority, John Doggett gave a speech which kind of played off of our asking ourselves what our relevancy is as NCGA and what our relevancy is as farmers looking forward. And he talked about the Republican and the Democratic caucus. And he said, as far as NCGA goes, we really look more like the Republican caucus, which is middle-aged white men. And if you look at the committee assignments in the House, they were all middle-aged white men. So contrast that to the Democratic caucus, then back in the early part of December, our Secretary Vilsack gave a speech at the Farm Outlook in DC. And he was taken to task by this statement. But if we read the statement and really let it sink in, some of us got really mad about this. And like with the E15 thing, we need to get beyond the burn and sizzle, and we need to take a look at this as a call to action. And what does this mean for us as corn growers, and what does this mean for us as NCGA? He was, whoa, has a voice of its own. So he was more right than wrong. So at NCGA, as we're starting to write our new strategic plan, we are asking ourselves some of these hard questions. How can we be more relevant? And how can we make our voice be heard? So as we take a look at the big picture, in the United States, we are now 4% of the population in the world. So 96% of the world's population lives outside our borders. What does that mean for us? And here in the United States, we as farmers only make up 1% of the population. And these have been our issues. These have been the issues that corn growers and NCGA and Michigan corn growers have been working on for years. This last year brought the drought into perspective, the farm bill, risk management, how important crop insurance is to us, the renewable fuel standard, and how we need to get our voice heard on why ethanol is important. And then talking about how our infrastructure in the United States is crumbling, and how is that going to affect our competitiveness in a global marketplace. Our challenge is that our concerns are not tracking very closely with what is top of mind for the other 99% of Americans. So what are their issues? My job. Do I have a job? Unemployment rate. Hungry kids. Kids in my school district, so many of them are on assisted school lunch programs or don't eat unless they go there for breakfast and lunch. And some of the teachers get together and make backpacks during the summer for these kids through church programs to get them fed during the year. They're worried about the economy. They're worried about the fiscal cliff. They're worried about their access to health care. And then there's climate change. They're worried about this volatility in weather and what it means to them. So they have their skepticism of us and what our priorities are. A lot of times we and ourselves and back in our rural communities and the coffee shops, we've got our skepticism about their priorities. So we are asking ourselves, how can we more meaningfully dialogue with them? Of course, it's in our best interest to do so. And creating those opportunities to dialogue gives us the chance to tell our story so it can multiply. And Marshall Matz made a comment this last year during all these things that were going on politically and said, really, you guys, you need to wake up, because the way to get your voice heard at the top with your legislator is you have to get your voice heard and you have to dialogue at the bottom. And by the bottom, I mean with all those people that are out in your communities. You can start out in your own communities. And how do you relate to that other 99% of Americans who have different concerns than we have? So our context and our perspective is very important. We have to see how our issues and what concerns us relate to other people. So what does that mean? Well, sometimes that means we have to step outside of our comfort zones. And so what does that mean? Well, we have to get out of the mindset of how we've always thought for the last 20, 30, 40 years. We have to try and understand what the other 99% of the population thinks is important. We have to ask our legislators surveys have shown when we go in and give our message that, you know, we produce the safest, most affordable food supply in the world, it is like talking heads to people. We say X and they hear Y. And facts matter less than their trust of who we are and what we do. And as Jeff said, you know, everybody loves the face of the farmer. But then when you go beyond and start thinking about what we do and talk about modern agriculture and get into GMOs and biotech and using pesticides, then they don't like us so much. So if we can figure this out, that's where the magic happens. That's where our work will really matter, and that's where our success will start. So this can be pretty scary for us to get out of our own comfort zone. You know, we all adapt new technologies on our farm and we move forward, but we also have to start looking at changing ourselves and the way we think, get out of our familiar places and groups of people, and it's hard work. So this is where we need to start thinking a little bit out of the box. You know, some people say if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. Well, it isn't going to work for us anymore. So as we discuss our new strategic plan for NCGA and our policies and priorities, and we get together at Corn Congress, you have members serving on action teams, we have to think a little bit about this. We have to remember that as we communicate our issues, we have to reflect on them in light of what the public is thinking, what they're talking about, and the things that keep them up at night. So these are some of the faces that we have used for farmers. And we need to encourage more diverse farmers to get involved. We also have to take a look at ourselves and be included, and as I look out at the delegates at National Corn Growers, we were asking the question, how do we prepare ourselves for the future? How do we get that next generation involved in the work of advocating for the farmer and advocating for corn growers? And, you know, before you get too depressed or mad or think there's nothing we can do, we really do have the programs and vehicles ready at NCGA and in Michigan for you to start addressing some of these issues. So don't start to think that there's nothing that you can do. Because I think the power of our organization is that we are a grassroots organization. I know John Doggett, our lobbyist in DC, went to his trade association of lobbyists, and they were bemoaning the fact that in this day and age with all the super PACs, the lobbyist voice is becoming less and less. And so they said the only thing that will make the difference, since we have the super PACs, is that you have a strong grassroots organization. So that's what we really have to work on. And we also have communication programs that are really strong right now. We have the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance. We have Common Ground. Kenny Wallace is going to talk to you this afternoon about NASCAR and how that enables us to get our message out to a diverse audience that we never would have had before, never thought we would have had before, to be able to talk to the NASCAR crowd. And we have the Corn Farmers Coalition that does a lot of work in D.C. So these ships are ready to sail. We just need to have the crew to start the work. So this is our new vision that we're working on this year. In 2020, NCGA will remain the preeminent voice representing the needs of the nation's corn growers. And don't get me wrong, we are still powerful in Washington, D.C. We just need to start engaging our grassroots and having more voices there. We will maximize opportunities for the corn industry to meet growing domestic and global market demand and increase corn farmers' environmental and economic sustainability. At the same time, we will advocate for policies that retain viable risk management tools, encourage science-based regulations, foster a positive public perception of production agriculture, and create additional opportunities to expand the uses and efficiencies of corn. So I've just been here today talking to you a little bit about who we are as corn farmers, who we are as NCGA, how the demographics have really changed and will continue to do so, and what that means for us so that we can be relevant, how the political landscape is changing. I hear this afternoon you're going to have one of your representatives here that sits on the House Ag Committee. I'm looking forward to meeting him and visiting with him. A lot of the demographics on that House Ag Committee have changed. The Democrats now, since we have so few rural votes, have a lot of people in those slots on the House Ag Committee whose number one concern is SNAP payments, SNAP programs, to feed the unemployed, the hungry kids, Meals on Wheels. That is the number one priority. So what's that going to mean for us as we go forward? I think one good thing that John Doggett did last year and really hit me between the eyes is he put up a picture of Nancy Pelosi. And, you know, I almost expected some boos from the audience, but I didn't hear them. And he said, here's who we worked with in the last legislative session. And these are the things that we got done. And these are the bills we passed. Then he put up the picture of John Boehner. And he said, and this is the guy who voted against all of those. And I think point taken that no matter who our elected officials are when they're sent to Washington, D.C. or to the Michigan legislature, it is our responsibility, it's each one of your responsibilities to make sure that you begin and cultivate a very strong relationship with them so that they know you. And you know, we all like to go to D.C. or we all like to go to the state capitol and be recognized by our legislator and glad-handed. You know, if they remember our name, it makes us feel good. That's just scratching the surface of who we need to be and what we need to be doing and our story that needs to be told. And we have to really push them. So if we ask them a question about where they stand on an issue, and they start talking about the weather or last night's game score, just be persistent. Hang in there. Keep asking them the question you want answered. Keep asking them, keep holding them to accountability until you get the answer that you really need. And do this respectfully, because you aren't going to get anywhere if you're burning the system. So that will be very important to us. As we as corn growers and we as MCGA, we aren't going to act like the House or the Senate in their bipartisanship. We have to have the ability to work across the lines and to be diverse so that we can accomplish what we want to accomplish. Because our numbers are so small and they're shrinking. So, my ask of you today is to plug this number into your telephone. It takes you right to the Capitol switchboard. And when the person answers the phone there, they will ask you who you want to talk to. You will be sent right to your Michigan office. And you don't have to talk just to the receptionist that answers the phone. You can say, I'm a farmer from Saginaw. I want to talk to the Ag Legislative Assistant, and these are my concerns. And also, like Jeff and Dan said, we have to be out there getting our grassroots mobilized. One of these days, you know, the simmering renewable fuels issue is going to come to a head, and it's going to come to a head like that. And we have to be ready as the API and the Chicken Council to respond to that. So if you haven't talked to your neighbor or your fellow corn grower about this ahead of time, we're not going to be near as effective. So please get out there and make your own voice heard. Plug this number in. If you know, carry my phone out and I run the grain cart. And, you know, I can just push a button. I can be talking to your senator or my senator senator or my representative in short order. And it's more important than ever. So, you know, as we're so frustrated because we don't have a farm bill. We're so frustrated because there are so many attacks against what farmers do, and there's so many attacks about the renewable fuel standard. I think, you know, we just have to say, okay, there are a lot of problems out there, but what are the solutions? And what is as an individual, can do something about it, as making calls, as being a member of the Michigan Corn Growers, and also supporting what we do with your checkoff dollars and your membership. And with that, I will end. I will be glad to take any questions or comments, and I will be around. Unfortunately, I have to leave at 2 o'clock this afternoon, but once again, it is a pleasure to be here, and I do enjoy representing you and what your concerns are at the national level. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, I just have a comment. You must have better cell service than we have in some areas in this state. We must have 2G because I can be right around with the grain cart, and I can't get anything. Beyond that, I wonder if national corn growers could undertake a study, if they haven't already or don't have the information, get back to the states so it can be disseminated to us, what it costs Brazil, Argentina, and China, some of these other countries, to produce a bushel of corn. We're competing with them.
Okay, 2 answers to your question. I don't have any better cell service than you do. I have to drive the cart to the end of the row and sit there, and my son or my husband's cursing me because I'm not there, but I can find cell reception, and it is important enough to take the, you know, we spend a lot of time doing other things, but it's gotten to the point now, we have to take the time to put that number in and to call. And secondly, I just returned from Brazil last week. Spent 1 day there in meetings, but it was worth the agony to get there and back because, you know, yes, we are competitors. We are forming some alliances with Brazilian corn grower associations and farmers in the Argentina corn growers. And, you know, I could talk about this for quite a while, but I think a couple points. Number one, we would have had much greater corn demand destruction around the world this year, even in the United States, had we not had corn production in Brazil and Argentina. Last year, you know, we as American corn growers, we really filled in the blanks for them. We exported many, many gallons of ethanol to Brazil, and we filled in our foreign markets. You know, we've had so much export demand destruction because of the drought, but we would have had more had we not had those other corn growers out there. And we really believe in the big picture, the 50,000-foot level going forward. Once we get our economy turned around, and once other economies in the world get turned around, there is going to be enough demand for all corn growers to play in that global market. We just need to make sure that the American corn grower is competitive on that, and that's why we work on our policies. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to, is that on? Yeah, it's on. Pam, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you. I mean, I've been to a number of different functions or different places in the world or whatever, and you're always there. And this lady is amazing. And she is a star amongst a lot of middle-aged white men. And she, you know, she's very modest, but her involvement in mapping the corn genome and all the different things that she's done over the years for corn and continues to do is amazing. And you know, just as a tribute to her, I just want you to know that these are the kind of people that we do need out there doing what she does. And she does it very quietly, although I've seen her at times when she's upset with something, stand up and get really involved. No, that's enough said. She's a star.
Thank you very much. As Jeff said, I'm a 6th-generation farmer. I come from a long line of not only men but strong women farmers. My mom and my grandmas went out the door at the same time as the guys and worked just as hard. even more important than that, I have two sons that are back from college, and one full-time involved in the agriculture, and the other one would really like to be. We just had our third grandson born 2 weeks ago. I'm really concerned about the future of agriculture in America. I'm very concerned about future corn growing. And for me, somebody asked me, are you having fun? Well, it depends on what your definition of fun is. I wouldn't really qualify this work as fun, but I would have to say this is some of the most rewarding and meaningful work that I've ever done in my life. And I think that's why we all of you, take time out of your schedules to go to meetings. I mean, people don't want to go to meetings unless they're meaningful. So my dad died the day I became NCGA President. And that video you just showed about farmers was the first thing that we read at his funeral. And he was very supportive of me, and I have dedicated this year as president in memory of